here today by another generation, and which you see here on the side of the stage. Read by Padraig Pearse outside the building on the right, which would begin the momentous week that would change the course of Irish history, so that we can proudly say today, Irish men and Irish women. And now, Stephen with us. Stephen, hi Stephen. This is Stephen Murphy.
How are you? Are you well? I'm very, very honoured to be here amongst you and to be able to share this with you. And it's dedicated to everyone who hasn't given up on this island, which I hope will be all of you. Scott, wasn't for this. I was writing a new verse on the way down here from Leitrim earlier on as well, so we'll see how it goes, you know. Give it a blast. Was it for this? The pagans strove with woven baskets born of love to worship at the altar of the harvest god Crom Dubh. As the sun rose up the reek and then set down the other side to summon pilgrims to its peak to come from far and wide, before the Christians came to Ireland and proceeded to rename it Croagh Patrick as it stands today, while proudly they proclaim it as a place of modern pilgrimage and not the site of ancient heritage that history forgot. Was it for this? The Druids stood before the old gods of the trees and founded schools within their groves to learn the mysteries that lay buried in the branches and encoded in the leaves as the language of the earth written there for all to see. Was this why they came between the people and the great divine and shed the blood of mortal flesh to prophesize through time? Was this the future they once saw? Was it this they had in mind when they foretold in days of old what's born can never die? Was it for the only empire in Rome that still exists, to confiscate her island, though some would still insist that we were never conquered, that somehow we escaped in spite of all the plundered land and the children that were raped? Was it the rules they teach in schools they claim were set in stone, that have rendered us like lambs to collapse if left alone, that now bring us back in droves to a church that we've outgrown but are scared to leave, or to believe we're better on our own? Was it for the famine, for the Irish Holocaust, that was rarely thus examined, but in truth the human cost was inflicted on this island by the British, and yet peace is supposed to be some pure and noble diplomatic feat? But Mandela fought for what is right and was called a terrorist. But the same people who in death have claimed his right to coexist was never left in any doubt nor disputed in the slightest, because the darkest stars that ever were in death will shine the brightest. Was it for Biffo, sight in Lisbon as the only show in town, inviting Europeans to kick us while we're down, inciting fear amongst the people and needed some relief from the systematic slaughter of a nation's self-belief? Was it for drum and bow in Anglo, picking figures from their arse, singing Nazi anthems to elucidate the farce of both the major parties, Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, for pretending key decisions are still made within the Dáil?
Good on you. Good on you.
Was it for this? Some keepers of the peace have forgotten the translation of An Garda Síochána. Or was it infiltration that has set the force upon the course of corporate racketeering at the expense of innocence for private profiteering? Well, the greatest crime there's ever been on this island is ongoing, as the IMF still strip us clean and bare despite our knowing, yet their crimes are somehow normalised and accepted as deserved by the dogs within our government and the masters that they serve. Was it for the US flights of extraordinary rendition, stopping off at Shannon on the way to their perdition?
Shame!
As if it's nothing more than a casual decision to be complicit in the torturing of innocent civilians. But instead of pushing peace, we imprison the protesters and determine their release at the whim of the investors who have bought and sold this island for the promises of oil in pipes they plan on laying on what once was farming soil. But the cows are gone, and the people are gone, and the farms are left to fail. Now they probe the seas for oil and gas, the lakes and land for shale, while the sycophants and the psychopaths clap backs within the pale, with an onus and the bonus for the speedy fire sale of our water and electric that could both be ours for free, with a slight recalculation of our own priorities. If instead of paying billions for a debt we never owed, we invested in renewables and let the future flow. Was it for Redmond to be draped across the bank in College Green? Or for Ireland's call to somehow circumvent our own vein? For the 59 days and counting since our people voted for an end to the divisions of our age-old civil war? This is the new verse, by the way. Yet still they just ignore us, electing just to see. Will our Coast Guard helicopters fish our corpses from the sea and hold families in hotel rooms? In desperate situations, who simply can't afford to pay the cost for immigration. Was it for this the proclamation was read out upon these steps? For this spire defamation that Bella and Bertie left, to cast shadows over bullet holes and pillars that remain, standing by the GPO where the volunteers were slain. For this, the Fianna marched across the mountains and the bogs. For this, we killed each other for the right to label gods. For this, we raise our children just to watch them up and leave as another generation educated and deceived. Or was it for the moment where you finally realise that all that really matters is what's right before your eyes? The simple understanding that come whatever else, you'll never know another as you learn to know yourself. And even though we come to love with everything we are, the truth is every one of us has once been battle scarred, and the purest love that still remains is written in that kiss before we fall asleep at night that says it was for this. Thank you, folks.
Peter Murphy.